Okay. Well, thank you everyone for taking time of your day to be here with us. This is something that Amanda and I have thought about, given the crazy times that we're living, and also given our long relationship with Nova Southeastern University. We've been an approved practicum site for, you guys were our first ones, so for a long time. And these are some uncertain times that bring a lot of questions to us, working in the field as professionals and as you guys as the students with the future, waiting to be developed. So this is the reason why we wanted to bring out this workshop to you all, and hopefully help ease up some of your questions and, be of any resources that you guys need. The majority of this workshop is going to be focused on working in the field of ABA during COVID-19. If you all have any questions about just ABA in general, or working in the field in general, at the end of the presentation, Amanda and I will post our contact information, so you could send us an email or call us, and we'll be happy to answer any other questions, okay? Also, there's a chat box in Zoom, so you can feel free to post your questions in the chat box, and we'll get to them at the end of the presentation. But no question is silly enough, so ask all the questions you want, okay? So let me start with the first introduction. My name is Maria Arismendi, and I am the president and founder of Progressive Behavioral Science, PBS. We've been in business for 11 years. We're a South Florida company. We strictly provide ABA services, whether it's in-home one-to-one, in school. We also have preschool ABA programs, clinics, and social skills groups, and of course, parent training programs as well. I am a former professor of ABA at FIU, and that's how really, PBS got started. As I was teaching ABA, I started to hire my own students back in 2009, a long time ago. And that's how the company got started. The reason why I started in the field of ABA is just, very short story. I'll tell you. I moved in 2001 from Colombia to the United States to finish my bachelor's in psychology. And I got a job as a living nanny, working with a wonderful family. I took care of their 3 kids, and one of the kids had autism. So for me, this was life-changing. I knew at that moment that what I wanted to do for the rest of my life was to help families like them, provide resources. And because I was a nanny, I got to go to the ABA therapy. I got to go to OT and speech. So it opened my door to this world of autism and ABA. And that's why I'm here. So now Amanda, she will give you an introduction about herself. She's my right hand. So go ahead, Amanda.
Hi, everybody. Thank you all for joining us, or if you're watching the recording, thank you for taking the time to hear our presentation and what we have to kind of share with you all. As Maria said, my name's Amanda. I am the Director of Recruiting and Talent here at Progressive Behavioral Science. I'm also a BCBA myself, so I have a clinical caseload. I've been with PBS for over 6 years now, and I've been in the ABA field for going on 13 years. It's a wonderful field to be a part of if you're not familiar with what ABA is or what it can do. It's a very special sector of psychology that truly creates great behavior change in individuals, especially with special needs. I currently am in charge of the recruiting and hiring process, as well as our training and onboarding of new hired staff. So if you're interested in possibly pursuing a position in the field as well, feel free to reach out to us as we're continuing to navigate this COVID-19 pandemic. We'll tell you a little bit more about some of the changes we've made and the services we continue to offer today, to give you some more details on that as well.
Perfect. Okay. So the day-to-day of ABA is very impacting, right? This is a situation that none of us have ever dealt with before, right? A pandemic. I never thought in my lifetime I would be dealing with this. And as a mother of 3 kids and business owner, these are some scary times, right? So we all have to work hard at understanding the situation and think with our heads, you know, in a and really try to see how can we get out of this in the good way, right? What can we do as an organization to serve our clients and help our people? So during this presentation, we're going to be covering different areas. How to find and maintain a job, right? How to find and maintain a supervisor, face-to-face meetings, meeting the board requirements, you know, as far as ABA, and the limited learning opportunities. But to be honest, compared to other industries out there, ABA is one industry that it's able to survive this because we are essential workers. So yes, we have changed the way in which we conduct business, right? We cannot have our clinics open with, you know, 20 clients at the same time. We can't do this. Our clinics are closed, but we have modified those clients and transitioned them to in-home for those that want to be home. And I'll explain this in more detail in a little bit. So there are ways to go about meeting those CDC regulations and limiting exposure, but still providing those services that are so needed to our families. And this situation of COVID-19 changes on daily basis. So you may have a therapist who wasn't comfortable working, you know, 2 weeks ago or last week, and now they say, well, next week I would like to have one client. So this changes on daily basis. Okay, so finding a job is the best of times and the worst of times, right? Who is going to think that looking for a job in the middle of a pandemic is a good time? Well, you'll be surprised, right? I think this will absolutely hurt some businesses more than others, right? Smaller companies or just strictly clinic-based companies, right? They didn't do any in-home or all of the services were in a clinic. Those companies will see themselves more affected by this COVID-19 unless they're willing to reorganize the way in which they do business, right? We did it all. We had 2 clinics, as I mentioned, but the majority of our services were already in home. And believe it or not, the telehealth model, which is what is happening right now, right? This is due to the COVID-19 situation. Insurance companies have had to really transition and approve telehealth services. Now, Amanda will go into more detail about telehealth, but just to make it just a brief description is when you provide therapy or support to a family through video. Okay, so we knew about telehealth before we even call it telehealth because we work with international families since we started 11 years ago, right? So yes, we travel to their countries, but after we leave their countries, the support that we continue to provide to these families and those therapists over there is through video, which is through telehealth. However, that didn't mean that our entire team was trained on this, okay? That doesn't mean that every single therapist that works in the field is equipped to be doing telehealth. So you as an organization have to take all of these things into consideration, right? Who is capable, right, of doing telehealth? Which clients benefit for telehealth? And Amanda, we went into a risk analysis that Amanda will explain, but you know, as an organization, you have an ethical obligation, right, to make sure that you're servicing your clients in the best possible way, but also not just provide services to provide services, but providing services that are beneficial for that client. Okay. All right. So smaller companies and center-based companies may not survive, as I mentioned. COVID-19 is very unpredictable in nature. Also, it is more difficult to find salary jobs. It is, it's much easier to find an hourly position, right? Because if you don't work, then you don't get paid. But a salary position at this time, they're tricky to find. There are hours reductions. You know, we had therapists that were working 35 hours a week, and now during COVID-19, they're not working all those hours. Of course, something else, for example, that we have done as an organization that many companies as well are doing, is that in order to limit exposure, right? These therapists, organizations are limiting the number of clients that a therapist works with. So for example, if you, under normal circumstances, you were working with 3 different clients, right? And right now, during COVID-19, you're not working with 3 clients, you're working with 1 client. So for example, 1 client that had 30 hours a week was being seen by 3 different therapists that they were all splitting those 30 hours. Now, as opposed to you were only doing 10 hours with that client, you're doing all 30 hours with that 1 client, and the other 2 therapists were assigned each one to a different case. So we have this policy of 1 case per therapist and 1 therapist per case. This is to limit exposure. Okay, so changes like that organizations have had to make, right, to make this doable during the COVID-19. But one sentence that I want you guys to know is that there's still more need for you than there are yous. Okay, so autism is not going anywhere because of COVID-19. The need for ABA services or for any other therapy will continue to be there. And if anything, parents are seeing regression, with the skills learned, they're seeing new behaviors emerge. So the therapy need is not going away. I understand parents may have preferences, right? Parents may have limitations during this time because they don't want to be exposed. That's absolutely fine. And we have those clients. We're still available. We check in with them on weekly basis. So when they do feel they want the provider to come in, we are there to provide those services. But we're not abandoning them in any way, but also we respect their personal preferences as well as their therapist preferences, right? You don't want to work for a company. We just did a workshop for FIT 2 days ago. And one of the professors at the workshop mentioned that one of her students, she's working for an ABA company in which they're forcing the student to see 3 clients in one day. And they told her that if she refuses to see those 3 clients, they will fire her and she'll be unable to claim unemployment. As an employer, yes, you can force your employees to do that. But I mean, the better question is why on earth would you want to work for a company that does that? I mean, that just shows you their true colors, right? I mean, we're in the middle of a pandemic, right? I understand we want to serve our clients. So I think that working for an organization that has shown their true colors during this time is very important. And use this time to really, if you're looking for a job, to understand what is important for you. What are you looking for in an organization? What is not, what are you not willing to compromise, to give up, and narrow your search and find the right provider for you. Okay, so center-based companies, of course, as I mentioned, what are companies doing? So center-bases are closed. I mean, you cannot have a clinic based on CDC recommendations. They don't want more than 10 people gatherings in one place. So absolutely, that is restricted, right? Direct at home therapy. So there are challenges, right? So, there still, we have families that maybe they work in the healthcare industry, right? So then that puts them at a higher risk for exposure. So can we do telehealth for those families? So it's not just so easy, right? I mean, not to mention the fact that redesigning the entire schedule for a company, right, Amanda?
Super fun.
Yeah, it was pretty
Couple sleepless
nightmarish.
nights. Couple
Yes,
sleepless nights.
yes, pretty nightmarish. But this is temporary. This is just while we get through the situation, and then things will go back to normal. And as I mentioned, telehealth. So Amanda, can you explain briefly what it is and some of the challenges with telehealth?
Absolutely. So telehealth, by and large, has not traditionally been a model used regularly within the ABA community. The reason for that, honestly, is in large part due to our funding sources that authorize ABA services for the populations that we work with. They set those restrictions, and up until now have largely restricted the use of telehealth or video technology in order to provide supervision, parent training, even direct therapy in some instances. However, when the pandemic presented itself, and schools started closing and services started being restricted and access to these services started being restricted due to stay-at-home orders, it was very, very clear very early on in this transition that telehealth was going to have to be utilized in order to continue providing support and services for our families in a safe manner. As Maria had mentioned, there are several different risk assessments that go into making these decisions. For those of you that are not involved yet within the ABA field, our decision making is 100% driven by data, by objective data collection. And so it's our duty to continue implementing data-driven practices, even in the decisions we make for determining continuation of in-person services, for assigning them to telehealth services. for determining if the risk was just too great to discontinue in-person services for this client, even in consideration of the ongoing pandemic. So it's really, really important for organizations to take a complete individualized approach, both into the families and the services we're providing our families, as well as how, as Maria mentioned, we're treating our staff and their specific individualized situations. So by and large, a lot of our clients have transitioned over to a telehealth model. It was something that overnight we pretty quickly had to become experts in. I could probably eat, sleep, and breathe telehealth guidelines and approaches by now. I attended, I think, more webinars in a 2-week time span during that time transition than in my entire career. Maybe not my entire career, but definitely a long time. And it really was necessary to continue best practices for our families. You know, in the field of ABA, we have to always practice within our scope of expertise. It's something that the BACB, our governing board, takes very seriously. So even though the insurance companies very quickly moved to opening up the doors for telehealth services, that wasn't just the green light to go get on FaceTime and start FaceTiming with your clients, or, you know, being able to just switch all clients to telehealth, no matter what their ability level is or their age is or anything like that. We had to really make ourselves experts in this new venue of how we're delivering services. We also had to determine what type of clientele or skill sets would fit a telehealth model for direct therapy. You know, imagine having a 2-year-old, you know, who a lot of our kiddos are on the early young side. You know, early intervention is a large part of the services we provide. Imagine having a 2-year-old try and sit in front of a computer screen for an extended period of time without a therapist sitting there with them to support them and prompt them and get them to work through all the different skills. So it requires a lot of parent involvement, and our parents are spread really thin right now. There's a lot of pressure on these family units, as you know, it became official not too long ago, a couple weeks ago, that, you know, schools in South Florida, or across the state of Florida rather, are, you know, virtual learning through the remainder of the school year. It became abundantly clear to our families that this was not just a 2 or 3 week thing that maybe we thought it was when this first happened in the middle of March before spring break.
Right.
So telehealth has been something we've adopted. We've educated our team on. We've given them access to resources, developed systems for them to follow. We've established a HIPAA compliant telehealth platform for them to do secure video conferencing with their families, where it also has the capability of screen sharing. And, you know, they can have multiple providers sit in on the session via video conferencing. So if a client is receiving direct therapy via telehealth, the supervisor can also check in via telehealth, and they would have a 3-way video session in order to, you know, continue monitoring and maintaining the skill sets we were working on prior to the pandemic. Now, like Maria said,
and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think also it's important, Amanda, that you mentioned that those who are working in the field, you know, right now, that they should absolutely be receiving support from their supervisors on how to conduct telehealth sessions correctly. There are changes in programming. You couldn't just be expected to know how to do it from the beginning when you've never been exposed to it.
Right, and it's something, as I was mentioning, that pre-pandemic was not really ever used, and especially in a direct therapy setting, was never used. It's not even really been researched. There have been a lot of new research studies that have been cranked out sort of quickly in order to kind of have some research out there to give some guidance and support to those that are educating themselves. So it's important that our supervisors are continuing to provide ongoing support and supervision. We have moved the vast majority of all of our supervisors to telehealth so that they are able to continue servicing multiple families. You know, our BCBA caseloads, you know, we don't want them going into 8 different family homes within any given week, and then they're continuing to kind of expose all the individuals in those environments. So our supervisors are continuing to provide ongoing support and supervision. We've modified our model to where maybe if the sessions need to be shorter, they're shorter in length. You know, we typically in person have a minimum session length of 2 hours. However, that may not be feasible, you know, at the beginning or at all for a kiddo or for a parent, where they're so spread thin. They're doing virtual learning. They're trying to hold down a full-time job while working from home, as well as, you know, just navigating the anxiety that is, out there in this pandemic, maybe 30 minutes is all they can give,
Yeah.
and they just need some support for self-management, for setting some schedules or routines up for the family to help keep them in some form of structure to get by day in and day out. So that's where we kind of have, taken our approach. And it's not without its challenges. It's always navigating, day in, like Maria said, things change day to day. And parents, who maybe at one
Mhm.
point were like, no, we don't want any of these services, have realized this is not an end. There's not an end to this anytime soon. So they are now, starting to decide, okay, maybe we'll give telehealth a try, or maybe they're okay with one therapist coming into the home now that everyone's been practicing social
Mhm.
distancing for quite a period of time, and following CDC guidelines. So that's where we're at with
Absolutely. Absolutely. So as Amanda mentioned, this presents some challenges, right? So challenge number one, ABA is an interactive practice, right? And COVID-19 doesn't really help. It's really, I mean, how do we stay safe? Limiting that contact, right, that we have with others. So this is the opposite of what we're supposed to be doing with ABA. We're supposed to be there, prompting, helping the child, interacting. And this has been changed drastically by COVID-19. This has, oh, I'm sorry. This has really also limited how we can not just do the therapy, but onboarding process. Let's say we're still hiring, this week, for example, we hired 2 people. So those people that we hire, yes, they have experience, but then how we can't see them in action before they work with a client, right? So how do you complement that through video, right? How do you still get, you don't, without lowering your standards, how could you still obtain that experience, to make sure that this person that you brought on board makes, is a good fit for your organization. So we have had to completely revamp our onboarding process, right? To make sure that, yes, we can continue to bring therapists, especially now that we have this model. I mean, pediatric neurologists, clinical psychologists are still providing diagnosis, right? So children are still receiving diagnosis. Children still need to receive ABA services and other services. So there's a need for clients, like we continue to receive new clients almost on a daily basis. So how can you still continue to provide services to new clients and continue to still hire new staff without lowering those standards and making sure that the people you hire are a good fit for your organization? So then we have had to digitalize a lot of the onboarding component for us. That hands-on, last part of training that was very hands-on shadowing sessions, we had to move that online. The data collection portion, we moved that online to make sure that they know how to collect the data. But opportunities are there. So use this time wisely, to educate yourself and to really look for the provider that you want to work for.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So now going into more of the requirements from the BACB, which is our governing board, for those that are certified as a registered behavior technician. That's basically our entry-level board certification for staff that are looking to become BCABAs or BCBAs in the future, but want to obtain experience and those fieldwork experience hours. They would first become a registered behavior technician. There are certain requirements that have been put into place that they're now relaxing a little bit. Previously, you had to have face-to-face contact with clients on a consistent basis for any of your hours to count towards your BCBA or BCABA exam. Now they're saying, if you are not able to see clients face-to-face, they're not holding you to the minimum supervision requirements of 5% of your hours. They're not holding you to that face-to-face client contact in order to accrue what they call unrestricted hours, which is not face-to-face client work. It's more program development, developing training materials, understanding the assessment process and parent training. Those are different activities that you are able to do as an RBT while continuing to accrue your hours during these unprecedented times, so things don't have to just come to a screeching halt. If you are unable to continue practicing as an RBT due to an organization temporarily pausing services or a lack of clients, and you are unable to obtain unrestricted hours, you are able to voluntarily place yourself as inactive, which just means you are not currently practicing as an RBT. There used to be a small fee associated with doing that voluntary inactive status change. However, the BACB has waived those fees for staff wishing to place their status on inactive during this time so that they're not going to get penalized for not accruing those experience hours. They've also extended the renewal process. If your RBT certification was set to be renewed during the COVID-19 pandemic, they've extended that renewal period from 30 days to 90 days. So there is more time now for you to obtain that competency assessment, and either if you are first becoming an RBT, you are now able to obtain a competency assessment with a BCBA through role playing, whereas previously it had to be with a client. Now they have relaxed that so that our staff are able to continue obtaining that RBT competency assessment. And they, instead of a testing site, we used to have to go to Pearson VUE testing sites to complete the RBT exam, the BCABA exam, and the BCBA exam. All of those testing sites have been closed basically since the schools shut down. They have now opened up RBT testing online from home. There is an online proctored test that you can take. So again, they're making it as accessible for staff to obtain these credentials during these crazy times so that you are able to continue working and gaining that experience should you desire to continue moving forward in this field. We're also staying up to date with new guidelines under the COVID-19 for BCABAs and BCBAs. Again, they have closed testing centers as of right now. It's through tomorrow, but the likelihood is that will be extended until further notice. However, they have not yet approved online testing for BCABA and BCBA certifications. We are keeping up to date and keeping our eyes on those changes to see if at any point they will reopen BCABA or BCBA testing for online home proctored exams, but they have not yet released a statement on that. But they have extended expiration dates, so if your certification was due to expire within the COVID-19 timeframe and you were unable to obtain CEUs or sign up for or recertify, then they have extended that from 30 days to 90 days as well. So they are trying to work with us as best as possible and continuing to navigate all of these changes. They are continuing to process applications for the BCABA and BCBA exam. However, they are not able to schedule those exam windows, but they will continue processing approvals so that once you do get the green light for the Pearson sites reopening or online testing, you're able to register for that exam. So for fieldwork experience, there have been a few different changes that have been made just within the last couple of days that were new, including releasing that restriction of requiring that face-to-face client contact. So our staff are able to continue accruing that fieldwork experience. They've created what they call a compassionate exception attestation for experience form. And how that works is you and your supervisor, if in 1 month, our supervision periods are 1 month at a time. So if during that month you were unable to obtain any face-to-face client contact hours, but you were able to do unrestricted activities, you and your supervisor would sign this attestation form. So you would be able to verify to the BACB that yes, indeed, your supervisor is verifying you were not able to work with clients, but they approved your additional unrestricted hours. So you are continuing to document that fieldwork experience. The BACB is big on clinical documentation. So be sure to just continuing, if you are accruing that fieldwork experience or you are a practicum student at NOVA, gaining your ABA fieldwork hours, be sure you're continuing to document your supervision. Please note that if you are continuing to see face-to-face clients or telehealth clients as an RBT, you do still need to have that minimum of 5% supervision. So be sure you're working with your supervisors if you are continuing to see those face-to-face clients or telehealth clients as a direct therapist, because you should still be receiving that 5% minimum supervision hours towards your certification exam. Appeals in case you miss a deadline, or if you need an exception made, the BACB has this new appeal request form they developed. in order to make exceptions for certain accommodations in these situations, because they're being very understanding that no one has really navigated any sort of issue like this or time period like this. So we're trying to figure it out and collaborate as a community and work together to ultimately come out on the other side of all of this, continuing to provide good services and have good staff and support. With that being said, accruing fieldwork can be limited in your hands-on experience. Less clients and less exposure means less hands-on. You're working with less families, as Maria said. You know, we typically do not assign just one client, you know, to staff. We like to give you guys a wide exposure to working with different families, working with different supervisors, collaborating with other therapists, because that's all an important component in all the work that we do. So that's typically something that we structure in to our therapy setting and in our just business structure as a model. But for right now, since we are limiting that exposure, our therapists are only working with one client, but it is, you know, a temporary situation. So we felt that that temporary limitation was worth being able to continue providing support and services to these families that truly need us now more than ever. You know, these are times that we're not used to navigating. And if we're not used to navigating it, I can only imagine the perspective and the position that our families are in, navigating having children with special needs, plus working full time, or maybe they were laid off. So it's an ongoing time period that we need to be there for our families.
Absolutely. Okay. So, but having said all of that, there are opportunities. Okay. There are definitely opportunities in the field of ABA. There are opportunities to learn about distance learning. There are opportunities to recalibrate. There are opportunities to really see where you want to work. Increased time for book learning. You guys are all in finals, so good luck with that. Yes, but this is definitely a time that many of us can use to do things that we wanted to do for a long time that we haven't done. So, you know, as Amanda went over in detail, there are relaxed BACB requirements, and there are still opportunities to test for aspiring RBT. So if you are someone who is looking for a job in the field of ABA, or someone who is working in the field of ABA, but maybe not very happy with your current provider, there's still opportunities out there. All you have to do is open your eyes and look and research, but companies are still around, they're still hiring. And just, you know, make sure you know exactly what is non-negotiable, what are your standards, and look for that type of provider. You know, if you're certified, this is a great time to really get those continuing education units, those CEUs. A lot of places are doing it for free, so take advantage of that. Or you could just do these trainings without getting the CEUs, just to get your hands wet, you know, and understand and become a better provider overall. But this is what we're doing during COVID-19. As I mentioned, this is just an overall of what we're doing as an organization in ABA, and also what other organizations may be doing. You know, this will change, right? We're not going to be one therapist per case and one case per therapist forever. This is temporary. So all of these measures are temporary. The field of ABA, with the rate of autism that continues to grow, is a field that to this point is the most effective evidence-based treatment for children with autism. So, you know, a family who has a child with autism, they're being referred to receive ABA services. So there are opportunities out there for you just to look around. And in here is our contact information for Amanda and I, as well as the website for PBS. The website is pbstherapy.com. You could also follow us on Facebook. We have a very active Facebook page, PBS Therapy, or just search Progressive Behavioral Science. You could get a feel of who we are as a community, but if you're considering about getting into the ABA field, it's the best job you'll ever have. Absolutely. No money, no salary will compensate to what it feels like to make a difference in a child's life. Now, I hope we have questions. I'm going to see, because I've been sharing my screen, so I cannot see.
I don't see any in the chat, but we can open it up to anybody who's around to answer any questions y'all might have.
One comment that was just made, which is so interesting. Great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
Thank you,
It's
Naima.
interesting. Emilio and I co-led a webinar this week on jobs and internships during COVID-19. And one thing that we mentioned, and one thing you guys mentioned that we were telling all our students and alum, or those who are graduating, is that know your non-negotiables.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, you guys said that, and that just really stuck out. And we, kind of told students, in the quest of, we know that, you want to get opportunities, and that's great. But, I like to use the term, do we select or do we settle? So going in and knowing those things at the time is always very helpful, but great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Maria, super informative. That was amazing.
Thank you, Emilio. We appreciate you guys giving us this opportunity to share our knowledge and our experience in navigating these crazy times. And hopefully it was beneficial to the students of Nova. And, we're, as Maria said, we're here to answer any questions, whether you're looking to come into the field, you're already into the field. We're happy to answer. Maria and I both have been involved in the field for many, many years and are happy to help navigate, entering the field or trying to find a good position during these COVID-19 times.
Exactly. Do we have questions? I see 3 more here. I'm going to stop sharing. Is that okay? So I could see questions.
Ashley Robinson. Hi, Ashley. She says, I'm not a certified RBT. How do I get started during this time?
Well, start with a 40-hour course. Actually, there is, what is the place?
Autism Partnership Foundation.
Yes, they're doing it for free. So Autism Partnership Foundation, you could take
I'll link it right here in the chat so you guys can access it. Give me one moment.
Perfect.
Yeah, so that is a free 40-hour course that you could do, and it's excellent. So that's how you get started. Then you can take your competency assessment, right? And then, if you're not working in the field, then you could, we hire many people that have done the course. And then once they start working with us, then one of our BCBAs does the testing for them, right? So there's a link.
Absolutely and that's a free course. It'll give you kind of a nice overview of many of the different concepts of ABA that are applicable to being an RBT. ABA is a very comprehensive, expansive science, but the 40-hour RBT course does a nice job of narrowing down the most important components for the work that you would do as an RBT practicing in the field. So that's a great starting point. Don't hesitate to reach out to us once you complete it, or if you have any questions along the way completing it, we're happy to kind of walk you through those steps of that process as well.
Thank you so much. My video and my microphone were being a little weird, so
no worries.
I was trying to figure that out. But
Absolutely.
I've been trying to do my research on my own because I've seen opportunities come up for jobs in the position, and all I was seeing was master's courses on becoming a BCBA. So thank you so much for this starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that can be an overwhelming, to try and look at committing to a master's degree before you've even really been exposed to the field. The RBT course is a great way to start to kind of get an idea. There's also several different, if you just go on YouTube, there are some, and with a grain of salt, we all know YouTube has good examples and bad examples of everything out there. But if you YouTube ABA therapy sessions as well, it can kind of give you a nice snapshot of what the work looks like in the field as well. That could be some help just to give you a nice overview of all of that.
Exactly. Do you offer services to adult clients? If so, are there any opportunities for adult clients during this time? We do not offer services to adults. We only work with children. But yeah, there are a lot of companies that provide ABA services to adults that are still open. You could, if you're looking for a company in a specific or for a county, I would say I would contact the CARD Center, the Center for Autism and Related Disabilities, since they have all the contacts for different companies and the age groups that they service. So the CARD will be in Miami, the Nova Southeastern University CARD Center is in Broward, and the FAU CARD. It's in Boca, in Palm Beach area. So you could contact the CARD Center and ask for specific organizations that are still providing services. And they're very well informed. We actually did a chat for them on Monday. For CARD, they do a weekly chat with their families, and they invited us to lead their, the chat for them. So they are very well informed in what services the companies do, right, and what age ranges. So that will be my recommendation. Thanks, Amanda.
I just linked the card link there for you too.
Awesome. Any other questions? Don't be shy. All right, I don't think so. Anything else? Well, I mean, Emilio and Nima, I mean, we're happy to do this again. Thank you for sharing the recording with your, other students. This has been a great opportunity and a great honor to be able to be part of this. So thank you for opening the doors to us.
And if there are any other opportunities or workshops, or once things settle back down, we loved attending Nova's career fairs, Shark Day. So we are happy to, continue collaborating with you all in the future once things kind of get back to some semblance of normalcy eventually.
Thank you.
Maria, Amanda, we're so appreciative of you guys and our partnership, and hoping to do more things like this, but definitely going to be sharing with our College of Psychology, our faculty and students. But again, thank you for all that you do and these amazing resources, not just what you presented, but love the Autism Partnership Foundation link you provided. Something else we're going to include in our psychology newsletter.
Awesome.
So great. Thank you so much.
Guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
students for
Stay
attending as well. Have a great day.
Thank you guys. Stay healthy.
Stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Thank
Bye,
you. Bye.
everybody.